One afternoon, Kanga and Roo were spending a quiet afternoon in a shady part of the forest. Baby Roo was practicing his jumps and falling down mouse holes in the sand, and Kanga was saying, "One more jump, dear, and then we must go home," when Pooh appeared. "Good afternoon, Pooh," said Kanga. "Good afternoon, Kanga," said Pooh. And then Rabbit and Piglet appeared and said, "Good afternoon too." Kanga was just about to gather Roo into a pocket and set off home when Pooh asked if she was interested in poetry. Kanga thought this a little strange and shook her head and smiled politely. "Not really," she replied. "Now, come on, Roo, we really must be going." "But you'll love this piece of poetry," said Rabbit, nodding vigorously at Pooh, who gave a little cough and then began to recite. "On Monday, when the sun is hot, I wonder to myself a lot. Now is it true, or is it not, that what is which, and which is what?" Pooh continued for 4 more verses, and as he began the 5th, Kanga interrupted and said, "How lovely! Now, Roo, we really must go home. Talking of poetry," continued Pooh, "have you ever noticed that tree right over there?" Kanga was becoming a little impatient now. "Where? Now, Roo?" "Just there," said Pooh, pointing behind Kanga's back. "No," said Kanga. "Now come along, Roo dear." "I think I can see a bird in that tree," continued Pooh. "Or is it a fish?" Kanga thought that this was a very odd conversation to be having and really wished to be on her way. But Pooh, Rabbit and Piglet seemed to be very interested in whether there was a fish or a bird in the tree, and so eventually Kanga turned to look. Kanga thought she heard a strange shuffling noise, and when she turned back, Rabbit had gone. "Why, where's Rabbit?" she asked. "Are you all right, Roo, dear?" A squeaky Roo noise came from the bottom of her pocket. Roo must have finally jumped in. Just then, Kanga noticed that Piglet's daughter disappeared. Pooh was quick to explain that Rabbit and Piglet had both suddenly remembered something and gone home. Kanga thought something wasn't quite right, but she decided it really was time to be getting home and bade farewell to Pooh. When Kanga arrived at home, she unbuttoned her pocket to let out Roo. At that moment, she had a very big surprise, for in her pocket wasn't Roo, but Piglet. First of all, Kanga felt a little worried for Roo and where he might be, but then she chuckled to herself at the joke that had been played on her. "Well," she smiled to herself, "if they are having a joke with me, I will have a joke with them." And with that, she pretended not to notice that Piglet wasn't Roo. "Now then, Roo dear," she began, "time for a nice bath before bed." Piglet looked a little anxious. "In fact," Kanga continued, "I think it would be a good idea to have a cold bath this evening. Would you like that, Roo dear?" Piglet had never been fond of baths, and with a shudder, he said in a brave voice, "Kanga, I think I need to tell you something." "Oh, you are funny, Roo," said Kanga. "But I'm not Roo," said Piglet loudly. "I'm Piglet." Kanga pretended not to understand. "Oh, Roo, and now you're imitating Piglet's voice too. Very clever. Whatever will you do next?" "Can't you see?" shouted Piglet. But before he could panic any more, Kanga lifted him straight into the bath and began scrubbing him firmly with a large flannel. Piglet tried to protest, but Kanga warned that the soap would go in his mouth if he wasn't careful, and in another minute, Piglet was out of the bath again, being rubbed dry with a towel. "Now for your medicine," said Kanga, "and then it's time for bed." What medicine?" said Piglet. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. It was Christopher Robin. Piglet had never looked so grateful to see him. "Christopher Robin," he squeaked. "Tell Kanga that I'm Piglet and not Roo." Christopher Robin looked at him carefully and agreed that indeed that was not Roo, for we had just seen Roo playing at Rabbit's house. But he also said that he couldn't be Piglet, as Piglet was quite a different colour. "But that's because I had a bath," said Piglet, jumping up and down anxiously. While Kanga and Christopher Robin ummed and ahed about who Piglet might possibly be, a relation of Pooh's perhaps, Piglet took the opportunity to scuttle out of Kanga's front door and run as fast as he possibly could. When he was near his house, Piglet stopped running and rolled the rest of the way home. Kanga and Christopher Robin smiled. Dear Piglet. And from that day on, Roo spent every Tuesday with his good friend Rabbit, and Piglet tried very hard never to be near Kanga's house at bath time. Not long after that afternoon of surprises, Kanga and Roo, Christopher Robin, Pooh, Piglet, Eeyore, Owl, Rabbit, and all of Rabbit's friends and relations were on an expedition. They had set off to find the North Pole, and after climbing very carefully up the stream, they were just sitting down by the river to eat the provisions they had brought. Everybody was enjoying the rest, and Piglet was even sleeping peacefully on the grass. Roo, however, decided to wash his face and paws in the stream, which pleased Kanga very much indeed, for this was the first time he had ever washed his face himself. She was just telling the others proudly of his progress when there was a sudden squeak from Roo, followed by a splash. "Help! Roo's fallen in!" cried Rabbit, rushing to the rescue with Christopher Robin. "Look at me swimming!" squeaked Roo, before being hurried down a waterfall into the next pool. Poor Kanga was very anxious. "Are you all right, Roo dear?" called Kanga. "Yes," said Roo. "Look at me!" And down went over the next waterfall. Everybody was trying to help. Piglet was jumping up and down, making "Oh, I say" noises. Owl was muttering something about the important thing in these situations being to keep the head above water. Kanga was jumping up and down the bank, calling to Roo, "Are you sure you're all right, dear?" And all this while, Roo was still very excited about swimming. Eeyore, meanwhile, had turned around and was dangling his tail in the water for Roo to grab on. But Roo didn't notice. "Look at me swimming," he squeaked again. Eventually it was Pooh who saved Roo. He found a long pole further down the stream and held one end of it while Kanga took hold of the other. "Come along, Roo dear. Reach for the pole," called Kanga. And at last, still bubbling with swimming excitement, Roo managed to drift against the pole and climb out. "Did you see me swimming, Mama?" he spluttered. "I was swimming, Pooh. Did you see me, Piglet?" Kanga was busy scolding him and rubbing him down when Christopher Robin said to Pooh, "Where did you find that pole, Pooh?" Pooh wasn't very sure and said he just thought it looked useful. Christopher Robin smiled. "I think our expedition is over," he said. "Pooh, you have found the North Pole." And so, all because of Roo's adventure in the water and the very important rescue mission that followed, the North Pole was found. "I think it's time we all went home now. Don't you, Roo dear?" said Kanga, when Roo was dry again. "Yes, Mama," said Roo. "Did you see me swimming?" The end.